Catus Maximus here. Just a basic review and comparison of the Leatherman, or some different Leatherman tools. We've got the Rev, the Wingman, the original Leatherman tool, and a original Skeletool. These are all pretty nice tools. They all have some differences. Compared to the original Leatherman tool, I think they have some advantages and some disadvantages, to tell you the truth. The jaws have always been really nice on the original Leatherman tool. One thing that was handy is the way the cutters, if this camera would focus, is the way they pass over each other. So they've always cut really nicely, even fine material, power cords and stuff. The little fibers will cut nice. One thing about the Wingmans is they're more like side cutter style. So they just are two cones that come together, and they don't even close fully. I think you can just see a little light coming through there. There we go. Although these have spring-loaded pliers, and the handles have a little spring, so they kind of snap open and shut on the Wingman, which has been pretty nice. And then, of course, the Revs, which are like just a cheap form of the Wingman. They don't have a spring-loaded pliers, and the plier design is slightly different. The design I like better because the two halves go past each other, and they don't have the scissors. It's really the difference. The difference between the Wingman and the Rev is that the Wingman has a spring there, and then they have two little spring clips in the back here. Come on, focus. There's a little spring clip, which kind of makes them snap open and closed. The original Leatherman tool and all these, except for the Skeletool, all suffer from the same problem, which is the back of the pliers is stopped just against the sheet metal of the tool, just like they are in the original ones. There. Come on. Well, you can see. And on these, this has like a weird split piece of sheet metal. I'd be worried about these. If you squeeze really hard, you'd end up just peeling that sheet metal back. And I've had it happen on old Leathermans. They're not lineman's pliers. They're not made for super heavy duty work. The one difference is the Skeletool. And there's been a lot of criticisms of the Skeletool and how basic it is, but it actually works as a tool. The screwdriver is nice. You can get a lot of force on it. It has replaceable tips. Although they're proprietary, it might be nice if they had designed it just to use 1/4-inch hex bits. But they work pretty well, and since they are an independent bit, they're made out of hardened steel, and they last much longer than the stainless steel screwdriver tips and the rest of these knives. The other nice thing about the Skeletool is it has like a classic plier design, akin to like a kind of a combination of an upgrade and a classic from the old one. I really like them. They're small, and they have nice serrations, but they're pretty narrow and pretty heavy duty. The hinge point has always stayed really tight on these. That's one thing I was going to mention about the Skeletool, is everything's really tight. This hook on the handle here has actually been a huge advantage. When you're using these as pliers, this is the way the curve here, you can squeeze really hard, and then you have a nice kick here, which means you can pull. You can pull far harder than you can pull on any of these other pliers when you're actually yanking on something. The other difference on the Skeletool is that it uses thick, heavy plates. Come on, focus. You can see these thick, heavy plates there and there. So these pliers are actually much heavier duty. I am sure you could squeeze far harder with the Skeletool than any of these other Leathermans, and not have any issues with the handles basically collapsing and coming together. I kind of think it's odd the way they have these big washers to hold everything together on the bolts, due to its being lightweight. But I think it works pretty well. They've always been super tight. And that's one thing about the Skeletool, is how tight it is. It has a pretty nice blade with serrations. Pretty easy to get out. It seems to be pretty rigid with that extra big washer. You have a slot head bit that's in the handle on the other side. Otherwise, it's pretty basic. It has like a little snap clip and a bottle opener and a belt loop there, which is pretty nice. And as far as doing work, I think the Skeletool really isn't that bad, because taking stuff apart and doing basic things, it survives. It survives an actual work environment. Show you some of the accessories on the Wingman. You have a ruler, some kind of hook or cutter here, a file, can opener, the knife's on the outside, serrations like the Skeletool, and it does lock. And on this side you have your Phillips and slot head screwdriver on the inside of the handles, and when you snap it together you have scissors on the outside. And these all lock, both the scissors. There you go, have to kind of force it, but they have this little lock here. You just press it over, and the scissors are pretty nice. They're pretty heavy duty with a little bent over handle here so you can press. And it's pretty heavy, definitely heavier than the Skeletool. It's handy. These others don't feel quite as heavy duty as the Skeletool. The Rev literally is the same thing as the Wingman, with the same screwdriver bits on this handle, the same ruler and hook thing on this handle. Just doesn't have a spring-loaded jaw and doesn't have the scissors. The blade is a little different. I'm not sure why they redesigned the blade on the... but it's a little harder to get out because you can't get at that edge. But it doesn't have any serrations, which some people may like better. But it has the same kind of cross lock. And the Leatherman original was pretty handy because he had the same Phillips and slot head. You had a Phillips, a bottle opener, a file with two different surfaces, like a mill file on one side and a bastard file on the other. Some kind of poker. I think it was like a leather punch. We had two punches on this. A big and a small slot head. An actual leather punch. And of course the knife. And the knife is always pretty nice. On these old ones, always nice to see the Leatherman USA on the blade. The originals are still the originals, and I think that they made quite a bit of design changes and enhancements. But to tell you the truth, any of these other Leathermans, like the Revo or the Wingman, aren't going to do a whole lot for you over the old Leatherman. If you have an old Leatherman that works, just keep it. When you upgrade, I'm not so sure about some of these new ones. I would go with the Wingman just because it has the scissors. But these were the standard. If you're actually doing work, like just have a pocket tool and you're in HVAC or construction or something, or maintenance, the Skeletool is what you're going to end up liking the most, because it has a knife, it has a good strong screwdrivers, and it has a really strong set of pliers. So anyway, that's just a basic review and comparison, and hope you enjoyed the video. Catus Maximus out. Feel free to subscribe.